Good evening. This is Peter Coleman. I am professor of psychology and education at Columbia University on faculty at Teachers College and the Earth Institute, and I co-direct a consortium called the Advanced Consortium on Cooperation, Conflict, and Complexity. And as part of that initiative at Columbia University, we are interviewing scholars who do work on conflict resolution, peacemaking, peace-building processes, and violence prevention. And this is the third in our series of interviews. And tonight we have the privilege of speaking with an Israeli colleague who is a visiting professor here and associate of of what we call AC4, the Advanced Consortium. I'd like to introduce my colleague and ask her to pronounce her name for me because she does it so much better than I could possibly.
Shahar Sadeh.
Thank you. And she is focused on working on something called peace parks, which is in the area of working on environmental issues either to prevent conflict or to mitigate and build post-construction, post-conflict reconstruction work. So I'd like to welcome you and ask you to give us a little background, to talk a little bit about your project, but a little bit more generally, I guess, about environmental peace building and specifically about peace parks. What are they, and how did you get involved in them?
Yeah, well, peace parks are transboundary protected area that are dedicated to the protection and the maintenance of biological diversity, natural and cultural resources, and to the promotion of peace and cooperation. Peace Park take the transboundary protected area definition and adds some political objective into it. Not only the biodiversity, but cooperation that will lead to stabilization, that will encourage regulated tourism, sustainable development, and of course the goodwill between all neighboring countries. So Peace Park can play a significant role in diffusing political tensions and to further develop and better manage the protected areas while fulfilling these social and political objectives. And let me just quote Nelson Mandela, which is one of the founding fathers of the Peace Park Foundation. He said that I know of no political movement, no philosophy, no ideology which does not agree with the peace park concept. As we see it going into fruition today, it is a concept that can be embraced by all. In a world beset by conflict and division, peace is one of the cornerstones of the future. Peace parks are building blocks in this process, not only in our region, but potentially in the entire world. I'm dealing with environmental peacemaking theories or writings that in general assume that environment could be a good tool for conflict resolution and for peacemaking, basically because it knows no borders. And environmentalists and planners and people dealing with environment in their profession, in their essence, see the world in a borderless way. So they will be more prone or more maybe more fit to work on peacemaking activities. And environment is a compound word because it involves both the natural world and the social world, the political world. So it could be used both in high politics, dealing with water issues or territory, as in low politics. Well, as it is said to be low politics, like bird migration or conservation activities. And peace parks are one tool in this environmental peacemaking view. Peace parks are firstly a transboundary protected area, which is a protected area that spans across the political boundaries of at least two countries. And within them, the physical borders are abolished so that both animals and people could meet in this area. And peace parks takes this transboundary protected area one step further and wants to embrace some political action into it. So this transboundary protected area is not only to protect the biodiversity or conservation, but to enhance political relation between the two or more nations and to create cross-border cooperation on these topics, and in general to enhance cross-border tourism, ecotourism mostly, etc. So I found this tool as very intriguing. When I first heard about it, it was in relation to the Golan Heights, which is a territory between Israel and Syria, in an ongoing conflict between the two nations. And I heard about these track 2 negotiations that took place between former negotiators.
So just to clarify, track 2 negotiations are negotiations not by the formal government.
Not by the formal government, but usually done by people that knows what they're doing.
Are influential in their communities.
Influentials and past negotiators, not me and you discussing these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So a group of Israelis and Syrians talk about creating a peace park in the Golan Heights that will enable and will be part of the official resolution of the conflict between Israel and Syria.
Now, are these environmentalists that are having these conversations? Or are these
Usually, when we talk about peace park, yes, it's environmentalists, planners, etc. But in this case specifically, the idea or the initiative that was not materialized was discussed by politicians, and what they thought of creating is a park on a third of the Golan Heights, which are annexed by Israel since 1967, so that the delineation of border will be less structure, because a park will be set on the borders.
Mm-hmm.
The sovereignty will be Syrians again, and the park will enable Israelis that love the Golan Heights nature to go there, to visit, to enjoy the Golan Heights reserves, and to create revenues for the Syrian side. And the water issue, which is a hard conflict between the two nations, would be settled through this nature reserve and through, well, it's much more complicated than that, but when I first heard about it, I was intrigued by it, and I thought maybe I should look into it and see where is environment in all this idea. Is it just a tool? Is it used instrumentally, or is it an essence by itself? And when I started to look into it, I found out that it's very hard to look into materials, because official negotiators that in past years did talk about this topic of nature in the Golan Heights are close to the view of the public for 30 years.
So tell us a little bit about how did you first get into this once you found out that you couldn't get any information on the Golan?
So once I realized that it's hard to get to information, official negotiation information, I created, well, I must say that I'm a Tel-Aviv University student, and I created an international conference there dealing with peace park along Israeli borders and the Syrian-Israeli case in specific. And I invited all sort of ex-negotiators and politicians, and Salim Ali, which is here from the States. He's a professor dealing with peace parks, to explain us about the concept. And I had to give like an introductory lectures about past experience in the Middle East of peace parks. And I heard about one experience in the past, and I thought I would have nothing to say, actually. But then when I started digging into the matter, I found out so many past experiences, mostly failed ones, or that did not were not achieved, not because they were not good enough, but because of the political situation on ground. One of the ongoing parks is in the Jordan River Peace Park, and it's been developed by an NGO called Friend of the Earth Middle East, which is an Israeli-Palestinian and a Jordanian environmental NGO. And they're creating this park in a unique setting. It's called the Island of Peace, or the Peace Island, where the sovereignty is Jordanian, but is the land is leased for Israel for 25 years. So in this unique sovereignty type of
hybrid
of land,
right.
Israel doesn't need visa to enter.
I see.
So the park is they can the tourists can enter it more easily, and Israelis and Jordanians could meet there once it would be developed.
So this is a proposal that's still pending, or this is a proposal that
it's been developed, and who is pushing it are local municipalities that want this park to be materialized because it will enhance tourism. And the state of the Jordan River is quite a very bad state, and the rehabilitation of the river is the basic demand for such a project to be developed. So because Israel and Jordan are in peace relations, though not a warm peace, but a cold one, but still cooperation exists between the ministries, and it's slowly and gradually developed with assistance of academy institute from abroad helping to plan this. They are planning ecologists in the site. It's a unique site in the setting of a crossing of the Yarmukh River and the Jordan River, and there are some historic component into it. A very interesting park to be developed.
So is the primary focus of your research then to look at primarily failures, I guess, because in this situation there are predominantly failures to one or two successes, but to look at the failures around initiating these peace parks and try to identify lessons learned, conditions that help. What can we know, at least from this arena, to move forward and to do more effectively and more successfully launch these?
Yeah. Well, the environmental peacemaking theory talks about that, looking into negative, kind of cooperation, meaning that
preventing
problems or addressing a threat that is mutual to enemies or past enemies is more useful for creating peace in environmental arena.
So you mean like a water scarcity or some type of
for example, in the Red Sea Marine Peace Park, there are threats to the marine life.
Right.
And this enables past enemies to more easily create cooperation. So the more successful, in a way, project that I've looked at, one demands the rehabilitation of the Jordan River. So people can tell themselves, even in rough political times, that they have to do it. They have to rehabilitate the river, or they have to rehabilitate or to save the marine life. They are fighting together against something.
Sure.
So yes, I see this as one line that I can say, when you look at such project, if you have a negative angle into it, it would be more likely to succeed.
Particularly mobilizing. So threat is a
yeah.
joint threat is a particularly helpful strategy.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. And usually planners and environmentalists are more useful for it, as I said. So project that started from below and from the need of the people that are on ground and want to see such development in their life, and not only governments want to create incentives in some developmental project that has an environmental angle into it. They will be more devoted to it. And in hard times, it can endure more easily. This is some of the lines that I see in this project. And there are many more nuanced than what I've just told. But in generally, I think that policymakers should be aware of this concept. Because, for example, another peace park that is ongoing these days knew nothing about this past experience. There are two communities, Palestinian and Israeli, that have been rehabilitating their joint river, the Alexander Zaymer River, for 12 years. And after 12 years of successful project, they decided to take it one more step further and to think of the positive and not on the negative. And they thought of creating a park, a joint park, and they knew nothing about this concept. They Googled the idea, and they came up with the Peace Park Foundation. They invited the CEO of the Peace Park Foundation from South Africa to come to give them a lectures, and some workshop was done. And then they came up with this great idea of a peace park, knowing, again, nothing about past local experience, learning nothing about past mistakes, etc.
Sure.
So I think that the fact that it is still running for 34 years, at least in our area, grants it considerable power again.
So this last example that you described, the community were unaware, and that helped. That helped them be more effective in implementing. I mean, eventually they reached out to the Peace Park Foundation and brought in strategists and had a better sense. But was it their naivete that allowed them to sort of persevere and move forward?
I don't know. I think it was, again, the negative threat and the fact that they succeeded in something.
I see.
They won some international prizes about the rehabilitation of the river, and they were motivated to move forward. So now they are in their funding, looking for funds kind of state. They produced a great CD about the joint project, and I hope to see it materialized. But they are very... First of all, they are not calling themselves peacemakers. They are talking about themselves as planners. They are not approaching any NGOs or peace NGOs. They don't want to be affiliated to any political entity.
Right.
So they are working as environmentalists and as planners. They want to keep it local. And in their declaration or statement of such park, they are talking about joint cooperation, and they are like hoping that in the future the border will be lifted. They are not pursuing this specific end of eliminating the border.
Right.
They are very pragmatic, and maybe this is why gradually they can succeed.
Well, that's very interesting. That's in our research in long-term conflicts in Israel, Palestine, and elsewhere. That is one of the strategies that we find to be more successful when you have a conflict of that nature. Peace work has its own downside, and to be associated with the peace movement or with goals around achieving peace can often politicize what you do and derail what you do. But if you can have it be about economic development or environmental conservation or things that are not intentionally unrelated to peace, you run into fewer problems. So it is a strategy, I think, that's employed more and more to just not associate with that discourse.
Yeah. Well, the initiatives I looked into declare themselves as wanting to promote peace, because there were many more other initiatives, touristic initiatives and environmental initiatives that crossed the border that didn't talk about peace. But when I started looking to it, what I decided to look at are cross-border cooperation on a specific land that wants to be one or to be united in a way or jointly run or jointly developed or managed. So and that cooperation is one of their goals. So these are positive in the two senses, both of cooperation and of conflict and of nature conservation.
Sure.
So it could be that declaring yourself as such is
some way handicaps your project,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you want to lift the border, you have to assume peace.
Right. But it would be an interesting analysis to look more broadly at other initiatives that tried to address tourism and development, but in a way that,
Yeah. Actually, I was sitting for many hours in archives looking for example, in the Ministry of Tourism archive. And there were so many dreams beautifully expressed for cross-border tourism, of nature trails and culture and historical and archaeological, and they were all just buried under the political situation.
Which is,
And it just, for me, it was so depressing to see this great optimism. It's actually called the peace euphoria years, because people were in a euphoria. And the declaration of most of the parks I've examined are so optimistic. They try to look at themselves as a non-political project, but they assume peace is here and it's here to stay.
Right, and could be non-political, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Very interesting. When you talk about success, that this particular case was successful on some criteria, what does that look like? What does success mean when these things work?
In the Red Sea Marine Peace Park, a success was achieved in creating conservation of the marine life there. They succeeded in producing protocols and to joint monitoring of the area. The park itself is a 10 kilometers non-sequential reserve. 3 of them is in the Israeli side and 7 of them is on the Jordanian side. And they had mutual exchange of knowledge and data, and they regularly met in order to both learn and decide about how they want to preserve this unique area.
So you can see it in the policy and planning that starts to happen in a joint way, and and do they track, like physical or biological indicators to see if it's actually helping the environment in the area, or is it?
Yeah, well, I'm not a biologist or marine biologist, but there were several articles produced by it and protocols, and all of the scientists say it enhanced conservation of the area. And this area is built on tourism, and when you enhance the conservation of the area, you enhance tourism. When you enhance tourism, the stabilization of the area increases. So you enhance peace in a way, because the chances that this specific location will go into some shaky...
create the conditions for disillusionment and frustration.
So you enhance stability and you enhance peace. So both directly by creating cross-border cooperation between the scientists and the institutions of the scientists. These are national institutions that were working with universities and with marine biologists all over the country, not only in these specific locations. So not only that you enhance scientific cooperation and created public policy making about this area, which of course leaks into different areas of environmental policy making. You, by creating this better condition in the area, you enhance tourism and peace in an indirect way.
Not to differ with Mandela, but I suspect that it is a concept that is universally acceptable, but the implementation during times of war and conflict, I think, are particularly problematic. That seems to be what you're finding in the Israel-Palestine case, that perhaps from a preventative perspective, establishing peace parks on borders where there are perhaps increasing tensions or the possibility of that as a way to mitigate that would be much easier to implement than it would be in an ongoing conflict where you have the difficulties with parties even recognizing the others as legitimate parties or as ministries of those countries. So I think the idea of peace parks is an excellent idea, but the implementation in these settings, I think, is much more problematic.
I think it depends what the situation on the borders is, because, for example, in the Israel-Syrian case, the concept of the park will enable, according to the ones that are promoting it, will enable the achievement of peace. And without it, it will be much more harder, because the park itself helps to mesmerize maybe the delineation of the specific border, which is in high conflict.
Sure.
It helped to resolve the water conflict in the in this specific area.
Sure.
Israelis are afraid not to have access to the entire circumvent of the Sea of Galilee, and such park will enable it. Such park will enable demilitarization of this highly conflictual area. So peace parks are part of different processes. In this specific, it's not a post-conflict area, but it's an ongoing conflict, and the park is envisioned to be part of the official resolution of the conflict. So it's actually part of the peacemaking before the government has even signed the papers of peace. So I don't know if you can take the peace park conflict and maybe this is why research is not so harsh about deciding whether it is helpful or not. And it depends on what level do you look at. If the park helped local communities to stabilize their own life but didn't help government to draw people to touristic area, what does it mean? Is the park failed to achieve its goals or not? So
yeah.
I'm not sure about your answer.
It
depends on the situation, and it's not only the Israeli-Palestinian situation, but the Israel-Arab in general. And now with the Arab Spring, we don't know what would happen.
Sure. And
what I have to say also that what research has shown is that in the Israeli-Jordanian case, what stopped this project from materializing is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that endures. And 70% of the Jordanian population are Palestinian in origin. So all these different ideas for creating these spaces of cooperation still exist. Well, I'm optimistic by nature, but I don't know for sure if these parks are used the right way, or the way they should be used. Well, one of the hard things about peace parks that they are dealing with territory and with land and with crossing the borders. And it's very political, of course. And if you want to create some, joint musical cooperation, it's easier to avoid the conflict.
Sure.
But in my experience, not as a researcher, but as a mediator of groups of environmentalists, of Israelis and Palestinians mostly, I came to realize that working on environment is very concrete. People can leave the conflict aside for at least a few meetings and work together to some end in a very productive way. So environment, yes, but when you speak of territory, as parks do, it adds the political topic into it directly. So working on environmental hazard or not, it was successful in a few instances throughout the years.
This has been an interview with Shahar, who has been working and doing research on peace parks, particularly in Israel, but in Israel with various Arabic nations which surround Israel, and has been able to unearth some interesting, I think, findings and conditions that could be promising, I think, for future attempts at these types of collaborative initiatives, both to prevent conflict, I think, and to mitigate and possibly resolve conflict. But it does, and given the current state of the environment and the connections we're seeing between such things as storms and climate change and the ozone layer, which was in the New York Times today, there'll be more and more opportunities, I think, certainly for crises to unite the parties. And perhaps, as you suggest, there's still some hope for the option of cooperation and joint work together as a mutual goal, moving the parties together as well. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work, and we look forward to seeing how it unfolds.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.